So, right now, in the warm waters of the Caribbean, there's this incredibly high stakes naval standoff playing out between the United States and Venezuela. It's a really complex game of military chess, with huge global implications. We're going to break down exactly what's happening just a few miles off the Venezuelan coast.
And let's be clear, this is way past just diplomatic talk. We're talking about actual destroyers and surveillance planes out there, a real demonstration of military force, and it's one that could destabilize the entire region. You can just feel the tension, and believe me, every single move is being watched.
So, how in the world did we get to this point? Well, the core of the problem is that both sides are looking at the exact same events, but through completely different lenses. What one side calls a security operation, the other is calling a prelude to war. Let's dig into these two competing stories.
Okay, so if you ask Washington what's going on, they'll tell you the mission is pretty straightforward. They say their destroyers, missile frigates, and surveillance planes are all there for one reason: to interrupt the flow of cocaine coming from South America. Officially, this is all framed as a regional security operation to fight drug trafficking. But if you look at it from Caracas's perspective, well, they see something completely different, and frankly, a lot more sinister. For President Nicolas Maduro and his government, this huge U.S. naval presence is a hostile act, a crystal clear sign of a coming intervention, designed to force regime change from the outside.
And this is really where you see just how far apart these two realities are. The U.S. says its mission is interrupting cocaine routes. Venezuela interprets that as an undeclared maritime blockade. What Washington calls a regional security operation, Caracas sees as a strategy of encirclement. And the stated goal of applying pressure on Maduro, to them, that means preparing for regime change. Same actions, but two totally irreconcilable interpretations. Now, this whole situation, it's not just happening in a vacuum. To really get what's at stake, we gotta zoom out and look at the international players who have a serious interest in how this all turns out. And that leads to a really crucial question. For years, it seemed like Venezuela was getting more and more isolated, but that's just not the case anymore. In this standoff, Caracas has some powerful allies, and their involvement completely changes the dynamic of this whole confrontation. Turns out, Venezuela has some heavy hitters in its corner. For Russia, Venezuela is this rare strategic military foothold in the Western Hemisphere. For China, it's a vital energy partner. It's sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves. And for Iran, Venezuela is an ideological ally, one that shares a common adversary in the United States.
And look, this support isn't just talk or a few handshakes. Since 2020, Russia has sent military advisors and advanced S-300 anti-aircraft systems. China has been pouring money into key infrastructure. And then, in a pretty surprising move, Iran has been shipping fuel, drones, and even ballistic material. The message is loud and clear. An attack on Venezuela could set off a much, much wider chain reaction.
So, with these huge global powers lurking in the background, every little military move in the Caribbean suddenly becomes way, way more dangerous. Both sides are making moves on the ground and at sea that are just dramatically increasing the risk of a miscalculation.
So here's how this whole dangerous dance is playing out, step by step. First, the U.S. ramps up its patrols with these heavy warships and constant flyovers. So what does Venezuela do? It reinforces its coastal bases with those Russian missile systems and puts its special forces on high alert. Meanwhile, on the inside, Maduro uses this external threat to rally support, tapping into this powerful, long-standing anti-imperialist sentiment.
And things got really tense recently. We're talking about a super close call where U.S. warships sailed into an area that Caracas claims as its exclusive economic zone. The Venezuelan military scrambled jets and frigates to intercept it. Thankfully, nobody fired a shot, but wow, it was a stark reminder of just how quickly a mistake or a simple misunderstanding could spiral completely out of control. So you might be thinking, why does this standoff in one part of the world matter to everyone else? Well, it's because the battle lines have been drawn, and the powers backing each side are immense. This isn't just about Venezuela anymore. This is a test of global influence. Just look at who's lining up on each side. Behind the United States, you've got a potential coalition of Western nations. And behind Venezuela, you've got Russia and China, both nuclear powers, and Iran, a major regional military force. All three have made it pretty clear they have zero intention of letting their strategic ally fall. This is what makes the situation so incredibly precarious. A lot of analysts are saying the Caribbean hasn't faced a geopolitical crisis of this magnitude since the Cold War. It feels like we're watching the region turn back into a superpower playground, a scenario most people thought we left behind in the 20th century.
In all of this, it just leaves us with one final, really unsettling question. A miscalculated move, a plane shot down, a ship that gets a little too close. All it might take is one tiny incident to trigger a military reaction that absolutely nobody can control. What happens then? That's the question hanging over the Caribbean right now.